citizen comments. An opportunity for citizens to address the board with comments and or questions. Citizens are asked to limit their time to 3 minutes each. Comments and questions may be made by attending in person, emailing comments to the meeting prior, or mailing written comments prior to the meeting. I think we probably have citizen comments.
Several members of the public.
I'd like to make a citizen comment. My name is Vicki Ross, and I live at 1011 Winsong Lane in Moscow, Idaho. And I'd like to read a little information that myself and some other ratepayers have been circulating in an attempt to establish a petition to dissolve the Business Improvement District. In the fall of 2019, myself and fellow ratepayers signed a petition to establish a downtown Lewiston Business Improvement District. Much of the BID work plan and budget were originally based on the downtown master plan that was adopted by the City Council on July 22nd, 2019. Beautiful downtown Lewiston was designated through the downtown Lewiston master plan and the Lewiston City Council as the administrator of the BID. Assessments began and were to end on December 31st, 2026. The funds that were received from the ratepayers were to show immediate results, while other items would develop over the years according to the annual work plan and budget set by the BID Advisory Board. On December 11th, 2023, the City Council in beautiful downtown Lewiston agreed to mutually end the agreement with BDL to administer the BID, and the city has assumed that responsibility. There was no notification of this action to the BID Advisory Board or the ratepayers. Therefore, there is a group of ratepayers that feel that the BID has failed. The downtown Lewiston Business Improvement District has fallen short of its original intention with little completed. At this time, there's approximately $157,000 of ratepayer funds in an account with BID designation being held at the City of Lewiston. Clearly, the Business Improvement District has failed for a variety of reasons. And we therefore prepared a petition to disestablish the downtown Lewiston Business Improvement District. The first order of our business was to reach out to everyone who originally signed a petition to support the formation of the BID. We reached out to every one of those. There were a few of the original petition signers that no longer own their buildings and no longer live in the area. And but we have received 44 signed petitions. There are 348 parcels in the district, building parcels. Parcels can include parking lots, buildings, but there are 348 parcels in the district, and we have received 44 signed petitions representing 181 of those parcels. More petitions are arriving daily, and I have a list that I'd like to circulate to the board. This is a list of the parcel owners, and everything highlighted in yellow is who we've received the petitions from.
You have one for each.
Nope, just that's one master list that just needs to be, because of the sheer amount of volume of those, I decided just to make one and circulate. But we do have more petitions that are arriving daily. There are corporations and entities that live outside of the area or are large enough that have had to go through certain protocol. And they have told us that those petitions will be coming back signed, but we haven't received them yet. So this is the work that we've done so far. I think it clearly sends out a message to the Business Improvement Board that the ratepayers would like to see this end today. Thank you.
Sure. Is it appropriate to ask Vicki a question?
Yeah.
Vicki, I'm not aware that the two
nonprofits that I fund were
You're-
contacted.
You're correct, Dennis. I literally did not have time. There's Mark Alexander, myself, and Dick White have been working to reach out, but with 348 parcels and multiple ratepayers and running our own business, we just absolutely have not had time to reach every single ratepayer that's on that list. So you are correct, Dennis.
Do you have any other citizen comments? Letters?
We do, we have one reading. Okay. So this is from New Beginnings Counseling and Support Services at 1313 G Street. This was a letter that we received. It says, hello, my name is Stephanie L. Beidman, LCSW, and I own New Beginnings. We are a counseling agency that provides psychotherapy and substance use disorder, SUD, treatment. I am one of 3 in Lewiston that does such. When I purchased this building at 1313 G Street about 3 years ago, I was unaware that I would also have this tax for BDL attached to my property. I am 1 block away from being outside of your grid for whom you tax. I am asking for your board to allow me to withdraw from being part of your endeavors for several reasons. A, this tax is not something I voted on as I am a Washington resident. B, this tax is extremely burdensome to my finances. I am not by any means getting rich as a social worker. C, there has never been one single thing done in my area by the board for my agency. D, because I am 1 block within your grid, I am taxed yet receive nothing for paying you. I do not get newsletters, I do not get notices about things you are doing, and no one comes here to see what they could do to improve my area. There is lots of homelessness here that adds to things being stolen from my parking lot and trash being tossed on the road because there is not so much as a garbage can being provided on any corner. E, your main concerns are the shopping district on Main Street and where that ends. So do you. You may liven up certain parts of your grid at times or paint cute metal chairs on the sidewalks, but you ignore my property. Jim Grove's property, recently sold, Demeen Family Medicine's property, Weapons Mart property, and all the homes here. F, if this is taxation without representation, excuse me. I am not represented or supported by BDL. I can't attend board meetings as I work 60 hours during the week and most every Saturday and Sunday just to stay afloat. I will give you credit for the fun things you do on Main Street and the like, but I am not included in those things. They are great for those businesses, but we are forgotten over here. I am respectfully asking that you please withdraw my business from the financial burden of being forced to pay for something I get nothing out of. Sincerely, Stephanie L. Beedman, LCSW. And that's all we received for letters or emails.
So, Madam Chair, how are we going to do this? Are we going to put a motion forward, or are we going to discuss leading toward a recommendation?
Recommendations are active agenda item.
Pardon?
It says discussion with recommendation.
So we start with discussion. I'd like to start, if I may. I entered into this whole discussion of the BID with a degree of enthusiasm for opportunities that we could achieve in the district. But as I look at the purposes under Chapter 26 that are stated for the Business Improvement District, we really only concretely dealt with 3 of the areas that are in that list. And we have done that through kind of a stumbling affair from day one. I think all of us know that there was not a great deal of guidance given in the process of creating the BID, and that we walked into it not realizing that we were going to become a rubber stamp for the bills that need to be paid in the district. Did not realize that we were going to have a banking function and an accounting function more than a creative function. Along the way, there were some bumps. The original one, of course, was one that I got you involved in, which was that of the statues. And along the way, we thought we had a little bit of ability to do things. And unfortunately, we didn't have doers. We didn't have the arm of doers attached to us. That was attached to BDL and to the city of Lewiston. The communication breakdowns were very evident from that very first moment, and that our efforts were spent in cleaning up messes that were made instead of actually moving forward with what we wanted to do. That was incredibly disappointing to me. Just as it is disappointing to me to see some of our assets sitting in warehouses and communication still weak as to how those things are going to be accomplished and how those assets are going to be handled down the road. I think also the change that took place the latter part of 2023 that blindsided us in terms of who was going to be in charge of what, that happened, we were not told within 24 hours of our meeting what was happening, and I think that was probably the most blatant insult that I have ever seen the city level on a commission, and I have served on commissions in the city of Lewiston for 19 years. I've served on at least 7 of them. I went away from that meeting feeling incredibly hollow and understanding that we really didn't have a place, that this board really was not in a position to do anything except sit here and to review pieces of paper, and that we weren't the action board that I had envisioned us to be when this was originally sold to us as a good idea. I would hate anyone to say that I don't think it was a good idea. I think there are things that needed to be done and things that need to be done. It, however, had a very odd configuration in that it was either by fact or by implication focused on the downtown area without a stretch to the other areas where there were ratepayers involved who didn't get, and I think honestly did not get, direct benefit that they could see. I'm a great believer that anything that we do to improve downtown improves everybody else. But if you're putting money on the line, you want to see some productivity. Things sitting in a warehouse really aren't productivity. And dysfunctional communication from one entity to another is almost unforgivable. I experienced that. I was told early on, back off. I have the emails to prove that said, this is my project, I'm directing it, I'll take care of it. Didn't happen. I don't think there were ears in the city. I don't think there were ears in BDL that were working at the level that they needed to. And that's disappointing, to say the least. I think we have a complicated motion of recommendation to the city. It's not a simple one of dissolution, because there are assets out there. There are things that we're going to have to protect in a motion. I realize I've spoken quite a bit, but I am a ratepayer too. I think just summarily disappointed. And as a person who sits on a commission, I find it insulting not to know things that are going on. Put Katie in an awful position, Dawn in an awful position. And I just sincerely believe that it's time for us to make a move, as painful as it may be.
Is there more discussion?
My thought is before we make a decision either way, we need to get legal involved. I want to know for sure where the ratepayers' funds are going to go. Should we go ahead and move forward with the dissolution and make sure they go back to the ratepayers so that they're not absorbed by the city or the county. The city came in, replaced BDL without our knowledge, and I'm not gonna throw stones, but I can see where we might have a gray area of what would happen with those funds collected by the ratepayers, i.e. I'm a ratepayer, to go back to the initial ratepayers. So I think we should get legal involved. We should make 100% sure that the verbiage is in the initial terms that were set forward. I believe Courtney Kramer, I think, was a big advocate of this, and then once it started, I wasn't involved. I've only been here 6 months. I have no idea what was promised initially to the ratepayers that approved the ID. I do know that after it was founded, that the initial group of people went along their merry little way and then left everybody else to kind of pick up the pieces. We have no idea. I'm speaking with Katie, I think you agreed. We can't find any idea of what the initial promise was to the ratepayers to form this in the first place, what was supposed to be expected by the ratepayers. Doc, you've been here a lot longer than I have, so you would be more of a, knowledge to let me know what initially was expected by the BID participants, ratepayers, and what was supposed to happen. I think we discussed part of that. You touched on that earlier today. At this point, we have gained some momentum with the lights, purchasing things. I do see some value with the city, if this were not to be terminated, having Parks and Rec to be able to do installations, which we didn't have before, to have some of the city's wherewithal for us to be able to move forward with some of the projects that are on the 2024 work plan. But with that being said, looking back, I can't, in good conscience, defend promises that I have no idea what they were that were initially made when the BID was created. So my take on this whole deal is, long story short, check with legal, make 100% sure that the funds will go back to the ratepayers, find out what's gonna happen with the assets that we've already purchased that are sitting in storage, see if there's a plan for those as part of the dissolution, and then move forward from there. I don't believe this can happen in 2 weeks. I think that this is gonna be probably a 4 to 6 week idea to make sure that all of our ducks are in place, so to speak, before we decide to either continue forward or whether we decide to disband.
Just as an addition to that, I think we also need to be concerned that all of our bills are paid.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah, so that's why I provided you guys with a copy of the state statute, because it does, and so it's been tagged in that specific area. So the two items I just wanted to bring to the board's attention. So one, and this is the part that I highlighted, this speaks to the petition that has been started. So the petition to disestablish a district has to be signed by the majority of property owners, or the majority payers, basically. So the businesses in the district which pay a majority of the assessments, the petition must be done in writing for disestablishment. So like Vicki had said when she provided public comment, there are 348 parcels in the district. I went through, and 132 owners make up that 348 parcels. I did not have time to go through and find what that dollar value balance is, but that's basically what they're looking for, is to get that majority ratepayer, the dollar amount over 51% and have that turned in. And then the second part, that 50-2619 for disestablishment of a district, it does say that any liabilities, so that would be any bills, would have to be paid before the district could be kind of taken apart, basically. So if there was any outstanding bills, any outstanding projects, those would need to be completed and cashed out before money would be returned to ratepayers.
One more take on that too. I looked at what Sandpoint did before they dissolved their BID. They kept it in place. They made the participation by ratepayers $0. They continued forward with their work plan with the funds that they had already collected to finish those work plans. And at that point, when the funds were depleted, their BID was dissolved. That's something else that a person might look at rather than just pulling the plug and leaving all the loose ends for however it comes out.
Yeah, and that would be something else, I mean, that could be part of the recommendation that the board makes to council. You could be real specific in your recommendation that you recommend closure by like a certain date with completion of the projects called out in the work plan, with no more assessments being taxed, and just completing with the monies that are currently in the account.
This is an option, so the board might.
Yeah, there are multiple options the board can decide on to move forward. You can recommend to council that it does not get closed. You can recommend to council that it just gets closed, we pay the bills, you shut her down. You can recommend to council that you complete your projects and get those paid and closed out, and then you close, and maybe you have like a sunset date in there. You get 6 months to do that stuff or 8 months to do that, whatever. There are different ways the board can choose to go about that recommendation. But a recommendation is expected by council at that February 5th meeting. And this board will need to be the ones making that presentation to council with your reasoning.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So one of the key issues, and Peter, I'm glad that you brought it up, it's time for everybody to be paying their assessments. So we don't have any authority, and it became clear that we don't have any authority to actually do anything except say to the city, please don't hold anybody in default if they aren't paying at this point, once we make this recommendation. That's a very awkward situation because we are in the season of renewals. Payments. That's right upon us. Now, does that mean that the ratepayers, if they don't pay, are defaulting on their taxes? Do we continue to pay? Do we?
I believe it's January 26th. I'm gonna invite Shannon up because I know that she's been discussing this with finance. The city treasurer was unable to attend this morning because she's in another meeting, so.
Shannon Grow, Community Development Director for the City of Lewiston. So knowing that the petition is in play and knowing that there's possibly a recommendation the city has internally talked about, do we send out bills at the end of January as per the ordinance that was created with the BID? And so we are aware of that issue. We also do not want to send out bills if this is coming to an end. As Katie said, what you could do in your recommendation is you could say, no longer collect assessments as of 12/31/2023. And so that means there would not be another assessment sent out at the end of this month. The city has not yet received the monies from the BID, so we would need to get those first before we even pay the bills from your last meeting.
Is that an authorization point from us to pay those? We can't do that in a special meeting.
You authorized the payment of them at the last meeting. The city does not have the funds yet. We have not received the funds from the account.
Not how that happens.
Gail has to write the city a check.
BDL
Yes,
has to write the state check, not BID.
well, BDL controlled those funds in that bank account. And so
correct.
they need to close that
So to
account.
be clear, BDL has to close that account and write that check to the city on our behalf. Is that not correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, the city does not otherwise have access to.
Madam Chair, that presents a complication in that we don't know how that happened or is going to happen, or when that authority was taken over by the city, did it end BDL's ability to write those checks, or are they obligated to write those checks, or can they say, no, we don't want to?
The agreement between the city and BDL to end the administration required that BDL give us the financials and those funds within 10 days, I believe. So as of the end of the year, BDL was not authorized to write any checks from that point on.
So Director Coe, is there any reason that we didn't have that information? I mean, I have honestly never felt in a more weird position being on a city commission than this particular position. We didn't even know that that was the agreement. None of us have seen that. None of us have read that. And when I look at the long list of people that you're asking to volunteer, that the city is asking, not you personally, that the city is asking to volunteer for organizations, commissions, makes me really nervous. I'm nervous that we are not really using the citizens as we say we are going to use them. There is enough financial acumen at this table to run the BID, to run BDL, and to probably run other parts of the city more efficiently than we've seen some things done. But you can't do it without information. It bothers me that we haven't seen that termination agreement.
Interesting problem.
You're always the calm one. Why don't you share?
Well, I agree with what you've said and what Peter said, but it's very difficult. I mean, I think we were all blindsided by the whole deal. I think we were all disappointed in what wasn't accomplished. I don't know what you do with the money right now. You know, you need to pay the bills. I guess the only thing I see that's a problem completing are the sunshades at Brackenberry. And benches and the trash containers, which are pretty much the majority of anything else we have, I think.
Besides the planners, yeah.
Yeah, the planters. You know, that shouldn't take much to take care of. Basically, makes me nervous to let the city take care of it. Particularly since I know it'll fall in Parks and Rec. And whether we decide to just go ahead and right now find somebody to take care of it, that's fine. I see a big problem, and I've seen a problem with that for a while, actually, in the city's plan for Main Street is gonna turn things upside down for, I could see, a couple of years. I don't know if spending money to install things downtown is well spent, if the city's gonna spend money to take them out, store them, and then put them back when their project is completed. Now, what do you do with them? I don't know. Maybe we should figure out a way to give them to BDL. Like I said, I don't know what we do with sunshades. I've told that could be a very expensive project. And what you do with the money, I guess as opposed to letting it sit in a city coffer, I'd rather see it returned to the ratepayers. I'm very nervous about what will happen to it if it isn't. many government agencies. City of Lewiston's not unlike that sometimes. I think Lewiston's basically pretty well run, but money sometimes gets allocated somewhere else because somebody needs it and all of a sudden it's gone. So that's my take on the whole deal. I agree with Peter. I think legally you gotta be a little careful. I don't know who would throw a fit over it, depending on what we did. But we want to make sure it's fair. Seems that, like I said, other than the sunshades, the other stuff's pretty easy to take care of. And then the money going back to the ratepayers is probably the best way to approach it. Majority of the ratepayers that I know probably would step up and take care of whatever needed to be done if the bench was supposed to go in front of their place. Most of us are pretty responsible citizens, so. Anyway, that's kind of my take on it.
As for a point of clarification, so did I understand correctly that the BDL doesn't have the ability to transfer those funds at this point?
The account should have been closed and a check for the funds that were BID funds should have gone to the city.
So they don't even have the ability to transfer that at this point? Is that
They
correct?
should have written a check to the city of Lewiston.
And should have being the key term, can they still do that?
Yes,
Okay.
we are expecting it.
Okay.
Those funds will be placed under BID control still, or is the city gonna take control when the funds are?
The city is the de facto administrator of a BID in Idaho. So the funds will go into to specific BID accounts, set apart. And once we have those funds, we should be able to give you monthly accounting of what happened within those funds.
And then when the board decides what they decide,
Yeah.
then that funds will be distributed according to the board and, of course, city council's approval, is that correct?
They
Best of your
will,
knowledge?
they will be distributed, yes, you would look at the ratepayers, you look at what is left over, and you distribute it back to the ratepayers.
Thank you.
We're still looking for recommendation from us for this meeting, whether it's the final recommendation or whatever it is that we decide. We need to come up with something for the council meeting February 5th as our advisory committee.
Another point of clarification, please. You mentioned petitions, but the petitions don't have to factor in here at all. if
The
we make
petition would be a
decision.
completely separate thing, so the board could make whatever recommendation the board decides to make. And that petition could come in with the appropriate number of signatures to disestablish, and the petition will basically override any decision that this board makes, any decision that council makes. If that petition comes in to disestablish the district, this district gets disestablished.
But then at that point, there's no roadmap of what happens with the assets and or the funds.
No, there still is, because it still follows, the exact same as you guys making a recommendation. If you had a recommendation, you would probably provide steps in that recommendation. Like the board has talked about, maybe you complete projects, maybe you do whatever, maybe you have a sunset date, however you guys decide to make that recommendation. If the petition comes in, finance and legal will look, okay, are there any outstanding bills? Okay, those have to be paid. And then they figure out the redistribution of the monies back to ratepayers. So it doesn't change the process, it probably shortens the process, because there wouldn't be like, oh, what are we gonna finish doing and what is our date gonna be? It's gonna be like, no, what are the bills, let's pay the bills, what's left, let's distribute.
Good. As long as we have in mind that the funds don't, given either way, the remainder of funds go back to ratepayers. I want to see that in black and white, and at that point, I'd be comfortable making a decision to move forward, whichever way the board decides.
I believe, and this might be a question for legal, but Shannon might know the answer also. I believe when they do the disestablishment of the district, they have to do an ordinance to shut it down. Am I correct? Is that your understanding also?
So, yeah, so
And
the
that
city
language
council
would be in
first
that
has to do a
ordinance.
resolution, 15 days, no less than 15 days, before they have a public hearing. So the city council could do a resolution February 5th, and announce that they will be doing a public hearing within 15 days or after that date. And at that point, then there would be, I believe, an ordinance that would disestablish the BID.
That would be based off your guys' recommendation and would have whatever language very specifically in it.
Council would consider your recommendation and then decide what to keep with your recommendation.
Conditions come in, it supersedes that, and that doesn't happen.
That is correct.
I would take a stab at a recommendation. The only thing that I'm struggling with in the stab at a recommendation is the collection of fees that are due this month. Because our recommendation goes on the 5th.
The assessments as of 12/31.
Pardon?
Stop the assessments as of 12/31/23.
I mean, we can recommend that, but we're recommending that.
They'll still get notice of it prior to.
How do we do that in a motion retroactively?
Do it.
I would.
Here, let's ask Shannon for a point of clarification, since it has been an internal discussion, because finance doesn't necessarily want to have to do that billing. If they make the recommendation, like they decide on the recommendation today, we would just notify finance that that's what's gonna go in front of council, and would finance hold that billing cycle, or?
We are checking with legal right now. That's the hope, is that we would not have to bill, knowing that this process is unfolding, that we would not bill. It just complicates everything. And so because it's a city, not a state requirement, but a city requirement, we're hoping that we will not have to send out those assessments until this is played out.
I would move that we recommend to the city of Lewiston at the February 5th work session meeting the disestablishment of the BID that was formed in 2019 with the following considerations. One, that no further collection of taxes takes place until there is a complete resolution of this issue. That all bills are paid. That stewardship of the current assets be protected. We recommend the distribution of any remaining funds to the ratepayers with a full accounting to this body, the BID Commission, prior to distribution of those funds.
I would add a deadline to the distribution of funds.
I would take a friendly amendment if you had a particular,
For example, May 1st.
Yeah.
okay,
Would give a timely manner for the city to get through their process.
by May 1st.
Wait a second.
We have to make a motion to accept, to approve.
So that was
He did the
that was the motion.
I second it.
Okay, so let me just, I wanna read it back just to make sure that we've written it all down correctly, okay? The recommendation to city council is the disestablishment of the district with the following caveats. No further collection of taxes from the ratepayers. All outstanding bills are paid from the BID funds. Stewardship of the assets that have already been purchased are protected. and distribution of remaining funds back to the ratepayers by May 1st, with a full accounting provided to the board prior to that distribution. Yes, did I get everything?
Yes, you did.
How do the members of the board feel about that? Wendy, Tammy, are we?
Is there any
That's what
discussion?
I wrote down, except I put June 30th.
I think this is the time for us to just, if there's anybody who thinks this is the wrong move, this is the time to say it.
At this point, coming in so late and not knowing what was initially promised when this was put in place, I think it would be a travesty to continue trying to piecemeal and Band-Aid the BID together and continue to collect funds from the ratepayers to do so.
Puts a knot in my stomach, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Yes, I would agree.
I would agree. And at that point, the assets would be ours to, whether we wanted to donate those to the city based on the fact that we use in the downtown revitalization, possibly. They can store them until such time, so they're not installed, removed, reinstalled. They can be placed wherever the city deems that they would be best effective. Put something like that together, I think that would make sense, and I'm fine with that. I know I would as a ratepayer where the funds are to be spent to have them used in revitalization somewhere or when the city does a construction project.
Vote, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Carries. There's nothing else on our special meeting
Does
agenda.
the board want to decide like who's gonna go to that meeting and who's going to present this recommendation? I feel like Pete's very well spoken on this, so maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it'd probably be you and I, but
I think, yeah, if the two of you go, that's probably good enough.
if you'd like to come having more experience, I think that would be,
Gonna see what
have an
calendars.
Yeah, so, work sessions, so it'll be on February, yeah, it's at 3:00, and it's here, yeah?
It'll either be here or the library.
We'll confirm, because I'll have to do a notice of quorum anyways. But they're at 3:00, they're usually here in the same room. If it's not, it'll be in the library where normal city council is held. Yeah, so we'll let Tammy and Pete, our presenters, staff, of course, will do all your paperwork and get everything on the agenda like it needs to be. And then if any of the other board members want to attend, please do so. I will do a notice of quorum, just to cover everyone being there if you want to be there. Otherwise, if you need anything else, I guess you just let me know and I'll provide whatever you need.
I plan to be there.
I'm glad we elected new officers last meeting. You're up.
question for you, just on something, do we still have access to funds to possibly spend on outside legal? And the reason why I ask this is Jennifer Douglas was originally the person the attorney that put 90% of this together. I would like to have her look it over as well. She can do so in the next 2 weeks before we present this. I'm not trying to make an amendment. I'm just wondering, can we do that yet or not? If the board can't do it, then I'll pay for it.
Like Shannon mentioned, the monies have not been transferred to us yet. I would have to check with our legal team. I don't know how that would work since Jennifer Douglas is BDL's lawyer. I don't know if that's a conflict.
Would be because BID is now no longer controlled by BDL, so we are not officially her client. I do know that.
That is true. Let me check and find out.
Okay.
And then-
I'm not sure.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to make sure we're doing it as we're
I
supposed
think
to.
we know what we don't need to do the same thing.
Okay, well,
Okay,
meeting
We're done.
adjourned.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, I need to get a
I
motion
move
to
that we
adjourn.
adjourn the meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed?
Every time.
Yeah.
So